Today's show is sponsored by the New Orleans Bourbon Festival. Enjoy exceptional bourbon, bourbon seminars, and cuisine surrounded by the charm and culture of New Orleans. The dates are March 24 through 26. Learn more at NewOrleansBourbonFestival.com. We are also sponsored by Round Table Woodworks and BarrelChips.com. They are bringing whiskey smoke to your favorite foods with their authentic whiskey barrel smoking chips.
You are listening to the Firewater Review. This is a podcast dedicated to whiskey reviews. I am your host, Seth Brown. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Aaron Cave. And tonight, we will be enjoying Maker's Mark Cask Strength. How are you, Mr. Cave?
I'm doing wonderful. Wonderful. How about you?
Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Ready to have a nice little pour this evening?
Yes, it's always a good Thursday when you can sit down and have a pour of bourbon with a Kentucky Colonel. So I'm excited. It's going to be a good Thursday night.
Not everybody can say that, I guess, right?
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm looking forward to this one. It's been a while. We were chit-chatting right before we hit record here. And as it turns out, we just so happened to be drinking the same batch. It's Maker's Mark Cask Strength. When it was first released, it was I think it was only released in 375s, wasn't it?
Yes, correct.
But yeah, this is batch number 14-01, so batch 1 of 2014, and it's probably been since early last year since I've even opened this bottle.
And I actually just opened this bottle tonight, so might have a few different tasting notes.
Yeah.
So it could be interesting.
With mine being open a little bit, airing out, it's about half full, I guess. That's the way I like to look at it, half full.
Yes, it's always half full until it's empty.
Yes, yeah. Which I have a hard problem doing, emptying bottles. I get to a certain point in it, and then I kind of start to back off of it. Do you do that with anything?
It depends. It's usually on a pour that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah.
Usually, if it's just just a good bourbon. Usually, when I get down to towards the end, I'll just finish it. That way, I try to finish a bottle then open a bottle.
Yeah.
So that way, I don't have way too many open bottles. Because you know how it is. Once you have too many open bottles, you have a hard time deciding what to drink.
That is a tough problem that I actually do have. Most of mine are open, and I keep most of my stuff down in the office, and I'll walk down here, and a lot of times I find myself gravitating to the same 5 to 10 bourbons over a period of time, and then after a couple of weeks I'll shift it up a little bit.
Yeah, I had at one point, I think I had maybe close to 40 bottles open, and I would just sit there and stare. It's like, what do I drink? It'd take me 20 minutes to decide what to pour. So
yeah.
So I cut it back a little bit to try and only have maybe 10 or so open at once. That way it's kind of, cut the time in half to like 5-10 minutes trying to decide what to drink.
Right. Yeah, that's not a bad plan. I better get to work. Mm-hmm. And that was actually one of my resolutions for last year, was to buy less and drink more of what I had. So I think that's partially why I have so many open, is because I believe it or not, based on the amount that I do have, I did cut back on what I was buying last year and decided to drink. And so now I'm left with a bunch of, opened some half full bottles, but we'll get there. I guess I better get to work if I need to cut it down to 10.
Yes. Get some good friends that have good collections as well. Just share. That's what I do.
Yeah. I have a couple around me that we'll get together and we'll do that. But I think they kind of have the same problem I do.
Yeah. Well, So, Maker's Mark cask strength.
Yep. What can you tell us about it?
So Maker's Mark actually, was opened. William Samuels, or Bill, opened the distillery, or bought the distillery, which was Burke's Distillery in Kentucky in 1953. They bottled their first bottle in 1958, so, roughly almost somewhere between 55 and 60 years ago. And for almost 50 years, all they did was Maker's Mark. Just the standard Maker's Mark. That's all they did.
Yep.
And then, 2010, I believe, is when they came out with the 46.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was the first thing in 50 years to really change. And then Bill kind of released the reins to his son, Bill Jr. And in 2014, this was his big project, coming out with cask strength. Fans asked for it, and they listened finally.
One of the things that I found interesting about that was, as you mentioned, they went so long. They went so long with just having the same bourbon, and then they went public and said they were cutting back the proof to, what was it, 80 proof from 86, and everybody went nuts about it. So they backed off of it. They did do like 1 or 2 releases of
I think so, yeah,
of 80 proof. I see some of those bottles pop up occasionally online for sale. But so they had 1 or 2 releases of 80 proof, and we heard you, so they bumped it back up to 86. But then what was it, like 2 years after that, we're going to do a cask strength. Okay, so we're going a complete opposite direction of where we were threatening to go.
Well, I think what happened was all these other cask strengths were popping out. Elijah Craig, Stagg Jr., all this stuff was popping out, and they're like, well, wait, this is what people want.
Right.
People are wanting the higher proof bourbons.
Yep.
More flavor when they're uncut, unfiltered. They just have so much more flavor, and I think they finally realized that and said, hey, this could be a big seller.
Yeah.
Especially with being close to one of the only higher proof wheated bourbons on the market.
Right.
There's a few out there, your W.L. Weller, Old Weller Antique is, they say it's supposed to be close to barrel proof, but it's, 107, but they do filter that, I believe.
Yeah.
But there's not a whole lot of wheated cask strengths out there, so this is kind of a special thing for them, I think.
Yeah. I mean, are you able to find it pretty easily up there by you?
Yeah. It's on the shelves around here in Columbus. Most places that I visit usually have a couple bottles here and there, and it's kind of nice because you can go to different places and find different proofs, so different batches. And I usually try to always get, a couple of different batches, just because the flavor changes between batches. That's with, all small batch bourbons.
Right,
and, single barrels. They're always different,
Yeah.
So I always like to try them side by side. That's usually when I get down to close to the end of a bottle, I like to pop another bottle and just try to compare the two just to see what the flavor difference is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
just curious, what's the proof on yours?
113.2.
Yeah, same here. I didn't know if they varied in batches or not, but
they do. I know I saw one on the shelf the other day for I think 110 something. So the proofs do vary. I think it's roughly 6 years maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't think it's much longer than that.
Right.
What's your take on it?
I know the regular makers is usually around 4 years, between 4 and 6, I think.
Okay.
So I would imagine the cask strength would be somewhere around 6 as well. I would think. Don't know for sure, but that's my guess anyway.
All right.
Well, cool. I've got my glass poured here, so I'm looking forward to getting into it. So why don't we? I do as well. Why don't we take a quick break, have a sip, come back, and share our thoughts on it. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. When we get back, we'll share Maker's Mark cask strength.
Cheers.
Cheers. We talk a lot about bourbon on the show, and one of the most important things that I think we all three can agree on is the ingredients that go into a bourbon. The better the ingredients are that go into any whiskey, really, not just bourbon, but any whiskey, the better the final result is. Could you guys agree on that?
Amen.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So we have Pig of the Month now.
Pig of the Month. It's the Pig of the Month.
Yes. And that's one of the things that they tout, is that everything they do, everything that goes into their meats is all only free range, growth hormone free, and grass fed. It's all natural ingredients. There are no preservatives, nitrates, or additives. Nitrates are one of the big things that I know my wife looks for when she goes to the store looking for bacon.
Bacon.
It's hard to find bacon that does not have it. It is.
Yeah.
It's hard to find bacon that does not have nitrates added to it.
Seth, you are talking all fancy and scientific, and I love that. Let me tell the listeners from my perspective.
Please
it's good bacon. Oh my.
Yes.
Bacon.
Bacon. Seth, carry on. I
No,
love
no.
what you're saying. No, you're spot on. You know, I just thought for the more like Evan type of people in the crowd, I wanted to be like, bacon. These pigs are good.
They are good.
Pig of the Month, great. So great too is the fact that everything comes, other than the bacon and the sausage, everything is just heat and eat. So that, you know, it's been fully prepared, no shortcuts taken. They're out there grilling the stuff and making it to perfection. So check it out.
Bacon.
It's shipped to your doorstep.
And speaking of that, if you use the code Bourbon Daily, shipping is free. So check them out at pigofthemonth.com.
Bacon.
Do it. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We have been trying in the break Maker's Mark Cask Strength. We've been slaving away over this bourbon, taking notes just for you, the listener. We work hard for your money.
Yes, we do.
Aaron, you want to lead the way here with what you think of it?
I would love to. Yeah, so on the nose on this, just smelling it is just reminds me of a bakery. Just
Yeah.
a lot of just grainy, just grain forward, but there's a lot of sweetness there. Comes out a lot of those baking spices come to the forefront. Yeah, a lot of cinnamon, some nutmeg, a little bit of clove. You know, the big thing that really hits me is cherry. I get a lot of cherry out of this, and the more I swirl, the more cherry I get. And then once that all kind of dies down a little bit, I get little hints of citrus, maybe some buttered biscuits, and just a touch of like toasted nuts.
Yeah.
And I honestly get zero oak on the nose.
Really?
I am not getting any oak. I do get a little hint of leather, but no oak for me personally. But I think it's a great nose, though. But I really miss the oak. That's one thing I really enjoy in all my bourbons. Is just that oaky nose and flavor.
Yeah.
But the palate's great. It's very sweet forward for me. A lot of brown sugar, some toasted nuts in there. I get a lot of molasses, and then back to the cinnamon and nutmeg. You know, it's almost like I'm drinking pecan pie, now that I think about it. It really is, you know, because I get a lot of brown sugar, a lot of toasted nuts, molasses, cinnamon. I even get a little bit of hints of like pie crust. And then I right kind of at the end, it's like a peppery leather with just a little hint of oak.
Yeah.
But the finish, I really enjoy the finish. It's long, it's hot. It stays with you. It gives you that little Kentucky hug right there at the end. And that I just get caramel. And at the finish is when the wood really kicks in. Is at the finish I get the oak, and then surprisingly orange peel kind of hits me at the end. So yeah, and it's thick and creamy. It's very viscous, and that's how I like my bourbons. I like it to just coat the palate.
Yeah.
And I want the bourbon to know. I want it to just hit me in the face. I love that feeling when it's just right in front of you and just bam.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really dig it. I like it. I think it's a great pour. I think they priced it fairly well, to stay true with Booker's. So, both being products, both cask strength, both 6-7 years. So I think they probably priced it pretty fairly.
Right.
So I give this, I'm going to give it an 87. I think it's good. I think it's a good pour. I think it was just a little off balance for me. Like I said, I didn't get much oak in it, and I kind of killed the score for me. But I did just open the bottle as well, so this is going to change within the course of weeks.
Right.
So I'll have to revisit it and maybe do a post review.
You can revisit it in like a year and a half, like I'm doing.
Yes. Yes.
Well, cool.
So what are your thoughts?
That's not a bad score, really. 87. That's what I ranked Blanton's on the Bourbon Show, famously.
Oh,
so
there you go.
No, I think we do have a lot of similarities there in the taste. I did get a little oak. It's not heavy oak like you would expect it to be, in a cask strength that's 6-ish years old. But I do get a little oak there. I was thinking the nose was a little buttery to me. It's got a nice some vanilla notes that I was picking up there, a little bit of nuttiness, and I was definitely picking up the cinnamon spice there. So if I can kind of see where you're going with the baking spices. I think maybe mine might be a case of it having time to kind of mellow out a little bit over the time. But I like the nose. The what I was picking up was fairly easy to kind of separate out those notes. On the palate, I like it for the same reason you do. It's very full bodied. I like a very oily, very viscous bourbon. I like it to just coat my entire mouth while giving me that tingle of spice on my tongue. That just, to me, it just kind of rounds the whole experience out really well. This one does that for me. It's very full bodied. There's a nice balance of spiciness and sweetness going on. It's a nice sweet and spicy bourbon, and I think that it being a wheated bourbon kind of helps balance that out maybe. But I was getting a little nuttiness with it too, maybe not so much toasted. I don't know what the butteriness, maybe, I was kind of maybe thinking it might be cashews, but I couldn't really put my finger on it, but there was some nuttiness to it. And I was getting some caramel notes and cinnamon, but like I said, there was a nice balance of that sweet and spice between the caramel and the cinnamon. Neither for me really ever overpowered each other. And upon entry, of course you get that spice right away, but then it just kind of mellows out a little bit. The finish for me too was long. I love a long finish on a bourbon. And I like earthiness in the finish too, and the cinnamon spice kind of leads the way into that finish and kind of helps drag it out even further. But there were some notes of caramel on the finish as well, but that cinnamon really kind of led the way there. And then towards the end, I found it kind of fading out into that earthiness that I was talking about, maybe with some light tobacco notes there. And I think it's a really well-rounded bourbon, and that's kind of what I was thinking too on the price. I had to look up the price real quick because, like I said, it's been I guess now almost 3 years since I bought this, or two years, whatever. And when it first came out, I was kind of like, wow, that's $35-$40 for a 375. That seems a little much, but when you think about it, you're getting the cask strength whiskey here, so. You're paying for that cask strength, and as we've mentioned, it's around 6 years old. So I went ahead and did it. I think the 750 is around what, $50-$60 now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the last one I bought was around 64ish.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it's very much, especially now that the Booker has raised the price, it's very much in line with that. And, you at least have some options out there. I guess I've never really thought about it that way, but maybe the price on Bookers isn't so bad now. They're just getting in line with the rest of the market.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the score is going to be an easy one to average out on this one because I too gave it an 87.
Oh, wow.
So do the math on that real quick.
No math for me. So there you go. You hear it, 87.
Yeah. Yep. But it's very solid for the price. It's a good cast strength entryway. So if you can pick it up, haven't had it, it's definitely worth a shot, I would think.
Definitely worth a shot.
Cool.
And remember, you can always add water.
Yeah. Yep.
If it's too much for you.
And I've gotten used to it. I think drinking more cask strength whiskeys over time, it's just like anything else. It's an acquired taste, but once you acquire that taste, I mean, it's almost like you don't want to go back. And I do find myself kind of deviating sometimes, but I think that's just kind of to reset the palate,
Yeah.
You drink cask strength for so long, and then you're like, I'm going to change it up a little bit. And then you go a couple of weeks and you get back in it. And to me, that helps me. I don't know if you do anything like that or not, but
I probably should. Because I find myself drinking mostly cask strengths. If you've ever read the Bourbon Zeppelin, I get a little column in there that's all about cask strength bourbons.
Yeah.
So every once in a while I do deviate, and I do come back down lower proof bourbons and visit those. I feel like once you get the taste for the high proof, the non-chill filtered, there's the thicker, more oily bourbons. It's really hard to just grab an 80 proof and go.
Yeah.
Anytime I grab an 80 proof and I take a sip, I feel like I'm not really getting much of anything out of it.
Right.
But that's just me.
Well, I think that's both of us. It's not just
you. Yeah. Well, maybe I should go a couple weeks, just lower proof and see how it goes. We'll see.
So you mentioned one thing in there too. I wouldn't mind touching on it real quick for the listeners. I know you talk a lot about non-chilled filtered. I mean, both of us know what that is, but for some of the listeners that might not know anything about that, you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe help them understand what that process is and what it can
I would
do?
love to. Yeah. So the whole reason distilleries chill filter most of their bourbons is to take out some of those fatty amino acids that can make your bourbon cloudy if you add ice or water to it. So back in the day, I don't know how long ago, but I know it was quite long ago, they were adding water and ice to bourbon, and it was clouding, and everyone thought the bourbon was bad, because it was getting cloudy, and it was just because they weren't filtering it.
Right.
They weren't bringing it down to the chill filter process. I don't know the degree they bring it down to, but they bring it down to close to 0, I think, and filter it, and that takes out a ton of amino acids, which takes out a ton of flavor. And it also kind of thins the bourbon out a little bit as well, so it's not as thick as you would find a chill filter or a non-chill filter bourbon.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the process, just mostly for looks, So
Right.
if you add water or ice, it doesn't cloud. But usually, if you're drinking a high proof bourbon, you don't add water or ice, and so no one
no one knows the difference.
I don't run into that problem.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, cool. Good deal. Thanks for the schooling lesson today.
No problem.
Well, all right. That's going to wrap it up. Where can folks find you, Mr. Cave?
Well, I am on the Instagram. I have 2 Instagrams now. You can still find me at acave0324. I have a new one. It's called at Bourbon Cave. So follow me on that, and that is all things bourbon in my life. So if you're listening to this, that's the one you want to look at, because that's going to have all the bourbon all whiskey, everything I'm going to be drinking.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. And I don't only drink bourbon, so every once in a while I will venture into some scotches and Japanese, and maybe even a few brandies here or there. So you never know what you're going to see.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's one thing I don't have is a brandy. Maybe I need to find one.
I have the perfect one for you, and I will send you a sample.
Excellent. I will accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually we've been mentioning your new Instagram handle on the last couple of episodes of the Bourbon Show that we've recorded. I don't know if you heard that Steve said he had blocked you, thinking that it was someone ripping off all of your content. So
someone stole my picture. Someone took my picture and put it out there. So
you would be surprised.
Yeah.
You would be surprised. We've had some people claiming that they were part of things that we're working on that they aren't really. Yeah.
I wondered why Steve wasn't liking any of my pictures for a while.
Now you know. He said he's unblocked you though, so you should be in the clear.
All right.
Well, I am Seth P. Brown on Instagram and occasionally on Twitter. I've mentioned the Bourbon Show a couple times. I can be found on that as well. Both Aaron and myself do reviews for the Son of Winston Churchill. That can be found on Instagram at Son of Winston Churchill. And I occasionally do a few pieces for Bourbon Zeppelin. Aaron, as he mentioned, has a regular article for Bourbon Zeppelin. So check that out too, if you don't mind. We have links to that on abvnetwork.com. So check that out if you would like to subscribe to Bourbon Zeppelin or read past issues. So check it out. And I think that does it for this one. We've been working on Maker's Mark, Cask Strength, and the final score that we gave it was an 87. So if you're into this, pick it up. That's it.
Cheers.
Cheers, and see ya.
Later.
The Firewater Review is part of the ABV network. For more information or to become a sponsor, please visit abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.